It is time for Political Breakfast. We are live this morning. Strategist Tharon Johnson and Brian Robinson are both here. Good morning to both of you. Happy Tuesday.
Good morning.
Happy Tuesday.
You know, over the weekend, thousands flooded the streets of downtown Atlanta near Georgia's capital with the Trump administration's protesting against the immigration raids. And just wanted to know your thoughts on how everything developed over the weekend. I know we talked a lot about it last week, and you know, we were bracing ourselves for a possible protest and maybe some pushback. But what were your thoughts on that? Tharon, I'll begin with you.
Well, the first thing that we all, as you mentioned, braced for was how large these crowds were going to be. And Lisa, as you just indicated, DeKalb County was front and center. And these protests have been going on peacefully in DeKalb for a while. But then we saw Liberty Plaza with thousands of people. And there were also rallies and peaceful protests all across the state of Georgia. For instance, over in Athens, Oconee County, there was a big rally over there with a lot of folks expressing their concern and their outrage as far as some of the ICE policies that have been happening across the state. But, you know, we also saw last week President Trump sort of say, okay, we need to ease back the ICE raids, to particularly protect hotels, farms, and businesses and people in the hospitality industry. And you've heard me say on this podcast a long time that you have people in this country who are here for a better life. They're here unlawfully, they're here undocumented, and there are some that are actually seeking asylum. Some are actually trying to figure out a way to have a legal pathway to become a citizen. And we always have to make this distinction between the violent criminals who are here, these repeat offenders, and many of the people I talk to in this country, particularly in the Atlanta area, who are undocumented here unlawfully, they don't like that either. And they think that they get a bad rep. But what I'm very happy about is that shout out to the women and men in law enforcement who did the best that they could to make sure that no one was seriously injured, no one was killed. Yes, we did have arrests. Yes, we did have tear gas. But I know it's a very, very tough position for these people to be in because they're just doing their job. And we have a president who is saying that he wants 3,000 arrests a day. And so we got to do something about it. We got to make sure that legal people are not being detained who are here legally, but also making sure that you're not attacking people's churches and their places of worship, elementary schools, and making sure that these folks are just not totally fearful to even go outside.
Brian, what was your takeaway?
My takeaway is this is how it's supposed to be. There were people expressing their opinions, exercising their First Amendment rights, and doing it in a way that did not pose a threat to public safety. I want to echo Tharon's shout out to local law enforcement. They handled this and previous encounters very well, obviously well-trained, ready for the moment. And also to Attorney General Chris Carr, who laid out on the front end, here's what we expect. Number one, you have every right to peaceful protest. We will defend your right to give your opinion, even if we disagree with it, till the bitter end. You can go out there and fight for the policies that you believe as long as you're using words, not violence. And the crowds heard that leadership, they heard that message, and they responded appropriately. You know, my advice to some of these groups as they're protesting is, who are you trying to reach with your message? Because I've seen these protests and people are wearing their Mexican flags around their shoulders or other Central American country flags on them. The organizer was the party of socialism and liberation. So for people out there that these groups are trying to appeal to, these are not images or messengers that they're going to find persuasive. They're not going to go, yeah, what we want is more people here who can vote and will vote for socialism. More people here who don't put their identity as Americans first. So there are some problems with them trying to reach the people they need to reach with the messaging they're using.
With that said, let's quickly change gears a bit. It's primary election day here in Georgia. 2 seats on the Georgia Public Service Commission up for grabs. This has been likened to the seriousness of a Senate race. Do you agree, Tharon?
Well, look, the PSC is a very important body of women and men who are elected by the people of Georgia to make sure that they regulate energy costs and do what they can to hear concerns from ratepayers. We haven't had an election since 2022. And there was, a bunch of lawsuits that went back and forth, a lawsuit that was overturned, which is what led to the election being today. And so the fact that I'm planning to go vote today, and I'm what you call, and I think you guys are as well, super voters. I've intentionally waited to the last day because I want to go to my precinct and I like talking to the poll workers. But do I equate this to the U.S. Senate race and it being as important, or yes and no. I mean, it is a very important election. A lot of people are concerned about the makeup of this group. There's been a lot of conversations about Georgia Power doing what they thought was best for Georgia families, and that is to freeze the rate hikes for the next 3 years. That hasn't been voted on yet. That'll be voted in July. But I think that, if you look at the turnout, which I know where you're going, Lisa, it's been pretty dismal because I think a lot of folks don't understand what the Public Service Commission roles and responsibilities are. But also, I think that it's gotten a special amount of attention this time around because you have candidates who are running who are talking about the future of Georgia when it comes to nuclear energy, when it comes to strengthening the grid. And you've also had folks kind of equate this to a body of folks that need to be more accountable. They saying that, not me, to the American and Georgia public.
Yeah, there's a lot at stake for ratepayers, Brian. Is it as important as a Senate race or maybe even a gubernatorial race?
It's a very important race, but nothing really rises to the level of those two that you just mentioned there. And that's okay. Voting for mayor is important. Voting for a sheriff is important. All of these things are important without having to have a comparison between the two. I want people to go vote in this election because I believe that the Public Service Commission has done an excellent job of steering the ship here in Georgia. We have rates below the national average, even though we're growing tremendously and the demand is hard to keep up with. And we have kept up with demand because we've made smart investments in future energy needs. And we're continuing to do that. Are prices higher than most Americans or Georgians want? Sure, but that's true across the world. Energy prices went up. That's just a fact of life. That's not the Public Service Commission making that decision on its own. Their job is to take the reality of the marketplace, make sure that ratepayers get a fair price, that the producers have incentives to keep doing the right thing, have it with the right profit margin, and then reinvest back into our energy grid. Our energy demands, particularly with AI,
5 seconds. 5 seconds, Brian. 5 seconds.
So go vote for these guys and get them back in office.
All right. Thank you both for checking in. We'll talk soon.